Vaxxed or axed? That's where we begin tonight. Growing outrage over the U.S. Army and Navy beginning to discharge members who refuse the China virus vaccine. The Army says this move is critical to combat readiness. According to the latest U.S. Army data, 40,000 active service members in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines face expulsion over their vaccination status. This as over a reported 3,428 religious exemptions were denied. Joining me now for a reaction and analysis is Pennsylvania Congressman and U.S. Navy veteran Guy Reschenthaler. The first time in the new year we're talking, sir, so welcome back. Glad to see you.
Thank you,
Congressman, here's what Pfizer's CEO had to say over the effectiveness of the China virus vaccine. Watch.
The 2 doses of the vaccine offer very limited protection, if any. The 3 doses with a booster, they offer reasonable protection against hospitalization and deaths.
Is it fair to discharge our military members over a vaccine that Pfizer's own CEO admits is essentially ineffective at stopping infection or transmission?
Well, no, Chris, of course not. And just 2 quick points on this. Let's call this what it is. It's a non-violent purge of conservatives from the armed services. That's what this is, because it's by and large conservative members of the military that are saying they don't want to take the vaccine. And it's an easy way for the liberal elite, the top brass that is very woke now, to expel conservative and Republican members of the military. It is a nonviolent purge. Secondly, they might come to Capitol Hill and reassure members of Congress that, yes, we are removing these members from the military. We're separating them, as the legal term is, and we're doing it with a general discharge under honorable conditions. The untrained ear would say, oh, well, they get an honorable discharge. That is not true. There's various forms of discharge. A general under honorable conditions, that sounds great, but the service member actually loses rights. It's only with the honorable discharge. In honorable discharge, it has to say that, not honorable under or general under honorable conditions. It has to say that for the service member to retain all of his or her own rights. So they can fool some members on Capitol Hill. They can't fool the former Navy JAG that I am. So do not let them tell you that is not accurate.
That's right. And the current people in charge of the military brass have no honor, Congressman, in my opinion. Because we played the Pfizer CEO's own words there about the effectiveness of his own vaccine, social media giants like YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, they're likely going to censor this segment, Congressman, because facts don't fit their narrative. Is there any excuse for the Republican Party not to pass reforms to Section 230 if they retake power in November, sir?
We have to do it, Chris. And by the way, as always, please just call me Guy. But when we take control of the House, which we will this fall, we will take control of the Senate and the House of Representatives. We need to rein in big tech, and we do that in various ways. Number one, we've got to repeal 230, stripping their liability protections away from them, holding them accountable for what they publish as content. That's number one. Number two, we got to go back to our roots, the days of Teddy Roosevelt, and get back to trust busting. I'm sorry, but when you have 90-some percent, 98% market share of searches, when you have a commanding share of online commerce like some of these big tech platforms do, that is a monopoly in the marketplace, and consumers are being harmed. We've got to break them up. We also need to look at giving consumers the ability to have a privacy right and an ownership right in their search history, for example, as well. We need to do that from day number one when we retake the House. It's the only way that we're going to, I hate to say this because Democrats say it all the time, save democracy. But when you have a situation where a CEO of a company can silence the former leader of the free world, that's way too much power. The Rockefellers of the world, the Carnegies of the world, in the days of trust busting, they never had the power to silence a former president. These big tech tycoons, they have that. And let me just finish with this. They do not represent the American people. They do not have the ability, they should not have the ability to silence conservative elected officials like myself that were elected. I've been shadow banned personally. They should not have that right. We also need to regulate these companies like they were telephone companies. AT&T, Verizon, they can't shut off my phone lines or my cell phone because I'm talking about a conservative agenda on those phones. They shouldn't be able to silence me on my social media platforms either. This is a line of communication. It should be regulated as such as well.
Well, Congressman, in my opinion, I think it can be proven through investigation that these social media companies are also, through their suppression of debate and suppression of actual science in favor of their left-wing narrative, that they could be costing tens of thousands of Americans their lives by suppressing information, which they are doing. And I think a case can be made, and and if that can be proven, these companies should be held criminally liable. It's official. Unscientific left-wing mandates are harming Americans. Johns Hopkins study revealing that lockdowns had little to no effect on China virus death rates, but a devastating effect on our society. Why is anyone, Congressman, still listening to the left when it comes to our well-being and our health?
I don't think the American people are. Maybe the hardcore leftists of society are listening to the Democrat elected leaders, the unelected career bureaucrats like Dr. Fauci. But Americans, by and large, are no longer believing the nonsense that's being told to them. And what's really sad is we have a pandemic that is more deadly than COVID. The CDC, Fauci, these petty tyrants have lost all credibility. Now, let's just go back to COVID. We were given a false choice at the beginning of this pandemic. And you were saying it, I was saying it, a lot of people on the right were saying it. It was a false choice to save lives and shut down the economy. We could have done both at the same time. We could have flattened the curve and kept the hospitals open. It was completely unrealistic that we were ever going to stop the spread of this virus. People either needed to get good therapeutics, a vaccine that was effective, or the virus had to have gone through the population, sadly. That was the science. People like Dr. Cyril Wecht of Pittsburgh were saying that. The unelected career bureaucrats and petty tyrants all over the United States, most of them Democrats, took the opportunity to crush small businesses, force us into our homes, and you see a rising spike in suicide attempts, especially in younger individuals. Mental health cases are on the rise. And for what? We had this false choice. We didn't save lives, and we had economic hardship.
Yeah, Congressman, I'm quickly running out of time, and I got one more question for you, and I want to get to this one because it's very, very important. On Capitol Hill, Speaker Pelosi has introduced the America Competes Act. She claims will help U.S. businesses compete with communist China. I want to play what you had to say about this on the House floor earlier today. Watch this.
China has dismantled Hong Kongers' civil liberties. They've increased their military buildup, and they suppress information about the origins of COVID-19. Yet House Democrats put forward a bill today that mentions coral reefs and climate change more than it mentions China. Calling this bill tough on China is a joke. In fact, under H.R. 4521, China itself is eligible to receive American taxpayer dollars through a, and I quote, green climate, end quote, slush fund.
Isn't this just another political bill designed to create a narrative, not a fact, but a narrative that will allow Democrats to pretend they're tough on China, when in reality all this does, it does nothing to curtail China's malign anti-American activities and doesn't hold them accountable for the virus?
It actually rewards China. You have this slush fund that China is eligible for. Hard-earned taxpayer dollars are now going to be eligible for China, the world's largest polluter, to draw from that fund that we're giving to the UN. Additionally, just like I said in that clip, coral reefs are mentioned more. Climate change is mentioned more than China is in the bill that's allegedly to hold China accountable. Joe Biden, in his statement on the bill, doesn't even mention China. This is absolutely laughable. The Senate passed a bipartisan bill to actually hold China accountable back in June. The fact that Pelosi is now running this, a bill that helps China, I would argue, does nothing to combat their malign influences around the world, is a travesty, and only the far left is falling for this. The American people are too smart. That's why we're going to take back the House in the fall, and that's why Republicans are going to be in a position to actually hold China accountable.